You're listening to the new WCEG Network on WCEG Click the live stream tab or watch us live on your smart TV. YouTube, WCEG Network. I'm Dr. Wanzo, your show host of Mind Matters for the next hour. We are the worldwide community empowerment group where we speak life into the community and life into you. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio and at WCEG Network. Last but not least, the topics and opinions are those of the show host and guests and not WCEG Network. Thank you for your continued support. Once again, good evening. Welcome to Mind Matters, where we discuss relevant mental health issues. I'm your host, Dr. Cassandra Wanzo, a psychiatrist practicing in Atlanta for the past 30 years. Hard to believe. Our co-host is Norman Carter Jr. He's a retired Philadelphia police corporal. He's written a book that's very relevant to these times, The Long Blue Walk, My Journey as a Philly Cop. It's available on Amazon and is very timely. He also hosts his own show on WCEG entitled Issues and Answers on Mondays at 4 p.m. Hi, Norm.
Hello there. How are you, Doctor?
Our special co-host is Miss Shavett Athouris. She has been a registered nurse for over 20 years. She has served as an RN case manager at various hospitals and clinics and has provided psychiatric rehabilitation treatment on the search of community treatment teams and has worked as the director of nursing for well-known agencies. She was a nursing professor for 5 years at a university in Atlanta, Georgia. She's the CEO of Pyramia, which are all natural products that provide a safe alternative to alcohol-based sanitizers. Welcome, Shavett. She is truly divinely inspired and awesome person. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, so welcome to our first show of 2023. Our topic this evening is suicide when the rainbow isn't enough. Again, suicide when the rainbow isn't enough. Rainbows symbolize joy and hope. When I was at a conference last month in Puerto Rico, there was a double rainbow, and everybody came and took pictures. Because as I say, rainbows symbolize joy and hope. Rainbows symbolize inclusivity. The rainbow was a sign of life for Noah in Genesis. It was a sign of God's commitment to the earth. For some, the rainbow isn't enough. Just hours before he died, exactly 1 month ago, DJ Stephen Twitch Boss posted a video of himself on social media. He was smiling and dancing a happy dance with his wife. Don't give up. Keep going, the post caption read in part. The official cause of death for the 40-year-old star of the Ellen DeGeneres Show and So You Think You Can Dance was a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. He also left a note in the hotel room alluding to past challenges. It is with the heaviest of hearts that I have to share my husband, Stephen, has left us. His wife told People magazine, she said, Stephen lit up every room he stepped into. He valued family, friends, and community above all else, and leading with love and light was everything to him. He was the backbone of our family, the best husband and father, and an inspiration to his fans. Family, friends, and fans find it hard to reconcile Twitch's sunny persona with his decision to take his own life. It's the public face versus private emotions. Again, it's the public face versus private emotions. People can hide their real emotions, even from the people they are closest to. Let me repeat that. People can hide their real emotions, even from the people they are closest to. The social media and the press are calling this high-functioning depression, which is really an oversimplified label for someone who seems able to manage well in life, but yet beneath the surface, they live with depression. High-functioning depression is not a medical diagnosis. When people talk about high-functioning depression, what they are actually referring to is dysthymic disorder, that is a chronic depression. The current DSM diagnosis for such a depression is actually called persistent depressive disorder, or PDD, persistent depressive disorder. Persistent depressive disorder is a long-term chronic form of depression characterized by a low mood that lasts for at least 2 years. It isn't as severe as a major depression, but it is a mild to moderate depression that lasts for most of the day over a long stretch of time. People with persistent depressive disorder can have change in their sleep, their interests, their appetite, and they can experience intermittent suicidal thoughts. This type of depression may be difficult to detect until it intensifies into a major depressive episode. People can actually appear like they're doing okay. You wouldn't necessarily pick up on their pain. In the US, about 2.5% or 3 million adults will experience persistent depressive disorder, according to the National Institute of Mental Health. What's important is to not minimize what a person is going through and to not use the term high-functioning depression because it implies that that person's problems aren't so bad. Just because someone goes to work every day and performs their job doesn't mean they aren't going through something. Let me repeat that. Just because someone goes to work every day and performs their job, that doesn't mean that they aren't going through something. Just because you can't see it outwardly doesn't mean that they don't need help. With persistent depressive disorder, or PDD, the bad feelings can fluctuate. There can be some stressful things at work, but then on the weekend after work, you go spend time with people who support you and love you, and it's like, okay, I got that. I can go back and take on the world. It's common for people with depression to overcompensate for feelings of emptiness by becoming the life of the party. I know Shavett, the friend that you knew, he was the life of the party, yet he went on to kill himself.
Yes, yes. And it was so interesting because, you know, for him as well, it was the last person that many people that knew him, you know, thought that he would ever do something like that. It was always a cover up with him because obviously we never knew how he was hurting inside or the emotions that he was feeling. Every time that you with him, he was all smiles. He was happy. You know, like she's saying with him, you know, this particular individual in Atlanta that committed the suicide, you know, just lit up a room. Just loved by everybody. It was just very, very shocking. So that's, I think, one thing that really gets a lot of us is when we can't see it, we can't smell it, we can't, you know, tell at all. And then we get the news that it's happened, you know, and so it's like the question is, if you don't really know, how do you fix it? How do you, you know, address it with that person? You know, especially if you ask the person, how are you feeling? And then a lot of us tend to say the same thing, I'm fine. You know, that's like a universal word for you're not fine. You know, so just have to kind of dig a little deeper to really try to see what's going on.
And this time last year, we were talking about Chesley Christ. She was a 30-year-old former Miss USA who was a correspondent, who was an attorney, and she jumped to her death. This is January of last year from her high-rise building in Manhattan. Now, in her case, her mother revealed after her death that she had a prior suicide attempt, which is one of the warning signs, a prior suicide attempt.
Yeah.
You know, what was interesting is that in that month of January last year, 2022, these are the prominent people who died by suicide all in the month of January. One was Ian Alexander Jr., that's actor Regina King's only child. He died January 21st last year. Kevin Ward, the mayor of Hyattsville, died January 25th. The Walking Dead actor Moses Mosley died January 26th, and Chesley Christ died January 30th. That was all last year in January.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
You know, sometimes I think these things are right in front of our face. Of course, R&B is like one of my greatest loves, but I go back to a couple of songs, Smokey Robinson, The Tears of a Clown. But another song he wrote, really typifies what you're saying. It's called The Tracks of My Tears. And the words go like this. People say I'm the life of the party because I tell a joke or two. Although I'm laughing loud and hearty, deep inside I'm blue. The Temptations the Temptations have a song called I Wish It Would Rain. And every time they have a performance and they sing the song, they tell the story that the guy who wrote the song because he was depressed because he actually had lost his girlfriend. And so he wanted it to rain to hide his tears. And just a few weeks after they recorded the song, this guy committed suicide or died by suicide. The man who wrote the song died by suicide.
Really? Wow.
So this was, and you know, we can go back to if you ever listens to Phyllis Hyman's last album.
Oh, wow.
People say that her last album was basically an extended suicide letter. Wow.
I heard her perform in person in New York in the Upper West Side, but what were some of the songs in that album?
I will tell you, I don't know because I'm such a fan. I have her picture on my wall, and I just refused to buy it. I was really brokenhearted when she died.
Wow.
But
do you recall the album? Do you recall the title of that album?
I do not. I could look it up. But it was her last released album, and she died just a few weeks after it was released.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Yeah. But these things, especially you can't always tell people by people's exterior,
Right.
Exactly.
what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
So
thing.
yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm giving some of the warning.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, I'll give you some of the warning signs that somebody might be at immediate risk for attempting suicide. If somebody's actually talking about wanting to die or wanting to kill themselves, if someone's talking about feeling empty or hopeless and having no reason to live, if someone is talking about feeling trapped or feeling like they have no solution, if someone is feeling unbearable emotional or physical pain, if someone is talking about they feel like they're a burden to others, that's a sure warning sign. If people withdraw from family and friends, if they give away important possessions, if they say goodbye to friends and family, if they put their affairs in order, such as making a will, which is something we should do, but it's still something just to be aware of. If they're doing risky behaviors, such as driving fast or other risky behaviors, if they're talking or thinking about death often, if they're displaying extreme mood swings, suddenly changing from very sad to very calm or happy, what that tells you is that they've gotten the energy to go ahead and kill themselves. Making a plan or looking for ways to kill themselves, such as looking for lethal methods online, stockpiling pills, or buying a gun. They're talking about feeling extreme guilt or shame. If they are using alcohol or drugs more often, that's often a way that people self-medicate their depression, with alcohol or drugs.
Mm-hmm.
They seem very anxious or agitated. There's a marked change in their eating or sleeping habits, or if they show rage and talk about wanting revenge.
Yeah. Those are actually good, Dr. Wanzo, as far as trying to figure out. And then also, I was thinking about, you may have people that feel inadequate or, feeling like they're a failure in life. They haven't met their goals and it seems like they'll never get there. And so, they get, these depressive, suicidal type feelings or thoughts. But other reasons too, you may have someone that's dealing with, according to their age, dealing with bullying, or some type of discrimination, especially for our youth. And, they're at school. A lot of times they come home, they don't say much to the parents. And, I don't know if it's because they're afraid or, because they're being bullied, they've been threatened to not say anything. So those are other reasons as well. And like Norm said, also ending relationships, you get so depressed, it's like out of our 7 boys, now they're with the females and all of this. And we constantly tell them, as they used to say, there's, plenty of women out there, plenty of, men out there, but you get so down, over the one person that you're in love with or that have that relationship with, life itself. All of us can experience some type of feeling down or depression, but it just becomes an issue when it's, constantly. And then you start thinking about suicide, or why are you here? Why are you on earth? And a lot of people too, when you're adjusting to different changes in your life, whether that's a new job or having to move to a new state or, meeting new people, or even like retirement and things like that, it can be kind of, depressing. Or people that have money problems, financial issues, or, homelessness, housing issues. There's so many reasons, but I think for us, people that you know and you love, we have to really go deeper, than the surface, and just saying, how are you doing? And when they say, I'm fine, you have to say, no, really, I need to know how you're really doing. You know?
Exactly. Right. People often think if you ask someone about killing themselves, that you're putting the idea in their head, and that's farthest from the truth. You're not putting the idea in their head. You're trying to find out how they're really feeling. So it's okay to ask someone if they haven't thoughts of killing themselves. You're not putting that thought into their head.
Right. Exactly.
So one point, your suicide does not discriminate. People of all ages, genders, and ethnicities are at risk. There is no single cause, but some of the other risk factors, if there's a family history of suicide, if there's a history of suicide attempts, if the person has chronic pain or terminal illness, if they are experiencing other mental health disorders such as PTSD, attention deficit, anxiety disorders, or depression, bipolar disorder, even in the postpartum period, when you can have a postpartum depression. So any type of depression, you're at risk for suicide, whether it's postpartum or what they call seasonal affective disorder, SAD, based on the time of year in the winter. Yeah. Another risk factor is having firearms in the home. We know over 50% of suicides are by firearms.
And I wanted to jump on the area, Dr. Wanzo, that you brought up about people feeling as if they're a burden. And I was surprised to find that the highest rate per 100,000 of deaths by suicide comes from people 85 years or older. And this is from the CDC.
What was the percentage? The percentage was, you said?
They are 20.9 per 100,000, which leads all age groups. And the one thing I used to tell before I even saw this is that because I've dealt with a lot of people with terminal illnesses, and the one thing that they talk about if you really sit and talk with them is that they don't want to be a burden. They will tell you, they will say that often. And I think that that lowers their will to live, but it can also lead to death by suicide.
Wow.
The firearms, right? That's something that, just having the presence of a firearm at home, you're more likely to die by suicide.
And speaking of firearm, I'm sure you heard about the 6-year-old that took the gun to school and shot the teacher.
Yes.
And it was his mother's gun.
Wow.
Where does that type of anger come from at 6 years old?
Yeah.
At 6.
That's very, very young and very concerning. Very concerning. Where that child needs therapy starting yesterday, last week.
Yes.
Wow.
Who knows what he's been exposed to, what kind of physical abuse, sexual abuse. I mean, who knows what he's been exposed to, but obviously something is going on with that child. Like my pastor always says, hurt people hurt people. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'll see our lovely state of Georgia. We are right in the middle as far as national death by suicide. We are, I believe the figure is something like 13. Georgia is 13.7, I believe. Yes, 13.7 out of per 100,000, which is 1,491 deaths in the state numerically. And that puts us not in the middle, but probably on the upper edge when you get to numbers, just numbers. But percentage wise, we're sort of in the middle. But number wise, it looks as if we're one of the top states, led by Texas.
Oh, really? Texas is number one?
Oh my gosh, yes, by a long shot.
Wow.
Texas has, their percentage is lower than ours, 13.3, but Texas is the more popular state. 3,924 deaths by suicide in 2020. So they by far lead the country. I mean, by at least 2,000, any state. And this is one of those states where they want everybody to have a gun, and it's open carry and footloose and fancy free with weapons. And this is the end result.
Wow. And then I saw something else that showed where with research, it shows that men and people from the LGBT community are more at risk for taking their own lives as well.
Yes.
Yes.
And I guess that's,
Right.
Just because of the pressures of everything, and all that they have to deal with and endure from society.
Right. Especially during adolescence, going through all the changes and feelings, the reactions from the family, rejecting them or whatever. So, right. Yeah, that's another very, very high risk group, very high risk.
I think about when we talk about that, as you mentioned, I think about Luther Vandross, and I say that because when you read his biography, there were people all around him knew that he was gay. He knew that he was gay, but the people, everybody around him told him, you can't come out because you're making your biggest customers are women. And this is going to hurt your career. And I find that in some very popular star, I won't call her name right now, she was one of the main persons who were telling him this. He was a tortured soul. And if someone would have just told him, why don't you talk to Johnny Mathis? Johnny Mathis sells out every show. I've personally been to him. I've been to his shows. He puts on a great show. Yes, there's still lots of women. People don't care.
Right.
They don't care.
Wow.
It's sad. So we have these people giving people poor advice. Poor advice. And this is why you have your LGBTQ people having a high rate of suicide, because their sense of self, their sense of self-esteem is shot.
And then too, for men, of course, this is not the case for all men, but growing up, you teach men to be tough. Some cultures teach their men not to cry and teach men not to show their emotions or their feelings, and they keep all of that bottled up inside, and they grow up that way, and not knowing that it is healthy to share your feelings and your emotions. So this just becomes explosive at some point, when they feel the pressures of life and the pressures of different things, and feeling like they have to keep their thoughts to themselves or their feelings to themselves as men. So it's just according to their culture and how they were raised. But a lot of times that's, when it talks about men and that particular community, it was talking about that's a part of the reason for men is that they feel like they can't really open up and share their feelings because they were taught not to.
And I see someone that's put in the chat room about that Phyllis Hyman album, very touching, Living All Alone. I can't stand this feeling all alone. One of the songs in there. So drug addicted people, and she was, are often lonely people. That whatever their coping skill is has been lost, and it's I've seen that up close far too many times, and it's very, 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 very sad.
And then too,
Wow.
we don't even think about a lot of the pressures that they're faced with a lot of times. Because even on the Ellen show, you know, for us on the outside, it appeared, so to speak, that he was, you know, he had it all. You know, he had a beautiful wife, you know, his children, nice family. You know, he and his wife, you know, made those videos together, and you know, him being on the Ellen show, he's been in movies, and it's just the pressures of it all. Like, you know, I guess for us on the outside looking, trying to look in, we just couldn't see all the pressures that he endured, all the things that he dealt with.
Right. How hard he had to get to where he was. And perhaps, and this is where people miss the point. You can be, quote, successful, have more money than any of us, but those are not the things that actually satisfy a lot of us internally. So that there are other things that could be missing that money can't buy. And this is what happens to a lot of people. And then the perception is, well, he had it all. He had it all. Why would he do that? Well, no, he didn't have it all. There was something lacking.
Yes. Yes, because I guess he did leave a suicide note, and the only thing that they revealed to the public is that the note alluded to past challenges. I don't know if he specified, but they haven't given any more information to us, the public. They said the note just alluded to past challenges. I don't know what past challenges he experienced, but obviously there were some things that he felt, you know, that life wasn't worth living anymore. Because that's what happens. You get to the point where the pain outweighs the hope and the purpose for living.
Yeah. And when it's not verbalized or voiced that you're hurting, and it's all bottled up and kept inside, you know, that's what gets most of us, where we're dumbfounded when it happens, because we never saw it coming.
You have to look at emotions as water in a boiling pot. And if you don't have a release for that boiled water,
for that pressure,
the pot will blow up eventually. They'll blow its top. And when that happens, I mean, things just go helter skelter. So this whole thing about men holding on to their emotions, I can tell you that it wasn't nothing doing with like ended my life, but I remember when my mother passed several years ago, and there was a lot to deal with, and I was dealing with everything, and I had to keep a level head, and I was good. In fact, one of my cousins said to me, you know, I haven't seen you break down. I haven't seen you cry. I said, I'm fine. I'm fine. True story. I was out with some friends 6 months later, having a great time, dancing on the floor, just laughing and joking. And as soon as I finished the dance, all these tears came out. I had to run to the bathroom, and I couldn't figure out why. And so it took me a few minutes to get myself together, and I'm dumbfounded. And about a week later, I'm at home, standing, looking out the window, just looking, seeing what's outside. And it happened again. Just bawling like a baby. And what came to mind was I had repressed my emotions after my mother's death. And that pressure cooker, it's still there. It has to come out. One way or another, it has to come out.
Wow. So how many months was it after? Was that a matter of months or years after your mother's death?
No, it was months. It was probably maybe 3-4 months after she passed. Yeah. Yeah, it was really strange, but I deduced that, and I was sober. So big thing. It wasn't a case of the crying drunks. It happened, and I think for the average, for people in general, and I'm speaking to men, that tragedy, loss of whatever, when you are so stoic that you refuse to let that out, to discuss it, to release that internal pressure, it's going to come out one way or another. It's going to come out.
I was listening to an interview with Prince Harry, about his new book, and he was saying in the interview that after his mother died, he never cried. So I'm wondering, what's going on with him, because he said he never cried. And it shows him, walking behind, remember, her casket down the street, his brother, but he said he never cried.
And they're brought up to be stoic. They're brought up to be, which is sad.
Never cried.
Yeah, they're that's looked at as weakness.
And that's again what it's saying. When you look at some of the statistics with men and the LGBT community, certain cultures, and they are taught to be stoic. They're taught to hide all those emotions, not really realizing that can be an unhealthy situation eventually. Because like you're saying, it's like a boiling pot with the pressure. It has to come out at some point, and it will come out at some point. Like for you, someone asked you, I haven't seen you cry. Are you okay? Sure, I'm fine. But
Right.
That's like a universal answer for so many of us. I'm guilty as well. People ask me, how are you doing? And I say, oh, I'm fine. I'm good. But inside, you feel something totally different. So that's, where we, especially as adults, have to kind of learn to, communicate those feelings, to someone. And, out of our 7 boys, we, with the pressures of college and work and life and, with these kids, and now from when we grew up, right, it's different today.
Much different
today. We've had a couple that have dealt with depression. And, for me, I know that I'm in the mental health field, but it's just, even when they deny it and I feel like they're lying to me, I just take it upon myself to speak life into them.
Right.
It may not be every day, but I tell them, how awesome they are, how you're doing a great job. God has a purpose for your life. I can't wait to see what you're going to be when you continue to grow up. Big things are out there waiting for you. I'm so proud of you, just whatever those encouraging words are. So when they go behind closed doors to themselves, you're talking to their subconscious mind.
Yeah. And what people don't realize is that young people have the reason why it's such a tenuous thing with young people, because they haven't developed totally their sense of self. And so the slightest thing can derail them.
Right.
Losing your 13-year-old girlfriend, that type. I mean, that's like a shot to your ego. You don't really have an ego then.
Or the bully on social media. They're very sensitive to, everything that's being said on social media.
Right.
And people have killed themselves based on things that people have said on social media. I mean, I remember one young person, someone told them to kill themselves, and they did on social media. So yes, social media.
Yeah, and that's social media is a good thing, but it can be a terrible thing, especially for young people.
And I see a posting here where they're talking about in the chat, where it's talking about different sports, especially football, but different how that can even be, challenging as well. That people play and they have to live up to certain expectations, of whatever they're doing, or whatever their the sport or whatever their career is. It can be challenging, the pressures of, continuing to be, on a certain level.
We had in the police department, we had what we used to call the John Wayne syndrome. And sadly, police officers have a high rate of suicide. High rate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of self-esteem issues, and one of the things that people get into things that are over their head, as far as economics, and just depression. I mean, look what happened after January 6th. how many of those officers at the Capitol,
Yes,
Capitol
yes.
officers, died by suicide.
Yes, they did. Yes, yes, yes.
Very stressful.
Yes, indeed.
And not only that, they never received any acknowledgement or words of encouragement from the Fraternal Order of Police.
Wow. Wow.
And
I was glad to see the Biden awarded those people last week in that ceremony. Those different awards out. Yeah.
Yes. 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 The families needed that just as much as the officers did. Yes.
And I like what they just posted in the chat saying that they're having to hide their real identity. Keeping that all under wraps, all internalizing it, basically.
Okay, so I'm going to go through, we went through this last year, we talked about suicide, so I'm going to go through this little part about 5 action steps for helping someone in emotional pain. The first thing is ask, are you thinking about killing yourself? It's not an easy question, but studies show that asking at-risk individuals if they're suicidal does not increase suicides and suicidal thoughts. Number 2, keep them safe by reducing access to lethal items. Number 3, be there, listen carefully, and acknowledge their feelings. Research suggests acknowledging and talking about suicide may reduce rather than increase suicidal thoughts. Number 3, help them connect. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number has changed to 988. Also, the National Alliance for Mental Health has a 24-hour number. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week. That number is 800-950-6264. 800-950-6264. That's the National Alliance for Mental Illness. Not only can they help you through an acute emergency, but they can also provide additional resources to get help in your area. And that the suicide hotline number again is 988. They changed it to a 3-digit number. So helping them connect was number 4. Number 5, stay connected, which means staying in touch with them after a crisis or being discharged from the hospital makes a difference. Studies have shown the number of suicide deaths go down when someone follows up with the at-risk person. So the first step is ask, are you thinking about killing yourself? Number 2, keep themselves safe by removing access to firearms or other lethal methods. Be there, listening and acknowledging what they're going through. Number 4, help them connect. And number 5, stay connected. So those are all things that are important to do when someone is expressing suicidal thoughts.
And Dr. Wanzo, I also want to add to that as well, because those are great. And if you are out there listening and you are having suicidal thoughts, or you know someone having suicidal thoughts, these are just a couple of coping statements, so to speak. So coping statements like, this will pass. That's just my depression talking, not me. You can say that. That's just my depression talking, not me.
Exactly.
Right? I will get through this. That's what you can say to yourself. You can also say, just because my thoughts tell me to kill myself doesn't mean I really have to do it.
Exactly.
Right? I don't really want to die. I just want the pain to end. Say that to yourself. I don't really want to die. Just how can I get rid of the pain? And then you can kind of talk to someone about that. But there are other ways to end my pain, even if I can't see them right now. Say that to yourself. My suicidal thoughts are not rational. Suicidal thoughts are a symptom, not a solution.
Exactly.
So those are things that you can kind of say to yourself, this will pass. That is my depression talking, not me. I will get through this. Just because my thoughts tell me to kill myself doesn't mean I really should.
Right.
I don't really want to die. I just want the pain to end.
Exactly.
Things like that. So there's other ways to end my pain, And
are you going to, the affirmation that you did, I still, have that, the affirmation that you said.
Yeah, you can do that. You can say it.
Okay, I'll read. This is something that Shavett said last year, and it's so powerful that I've written it and I keep it, with me. This is what she said last year when we did a show on suicide. She said, and this is so powerful. My sadness and my depression do not define me. Every day is a gift. I am blessed to see today. I have made it this far. I won't stop now. I am loved. I am appreciated. I am more than what people think I am. Whoa. Wow.
That was deep, and it was unprepared. I remember that.
Yeah.
It was unprepared.
Divine inspiration. You just said it was just so powerful.
Yes. So we just want to speak to all the people out there that are, having any type of suicidal thoughts. You need to know that there's only one of you. You're very unique. Very unique. And there is a purpose for your life. You may not know what it is today, but there is a purpose for your life. And you continue walking, putting one foot in front of the other. And I promise you, you will find your purpose. Just hang in there. Hang in there.
Do we have any questions or responses from the audiences at all out there? Do we have anything from the audience? Oh, one thing I want to talk about, persistent depression and major depression. So actually the treatment for both is the same. The difference that with the persistent depression is the symptoms are present for over 2 years, and you only need 2 symptoms for the diagnosis. For major depression, you need more than 5 symptoms. And for major depression, the symptom has to be present for 2 weeks. So someone with major depression can be depressed for a while, but with persistent depression, their symptoms are present for over 2 years. With major depression, they can have at least a 2-month period where they're not depressed. Then that's not persistent depression. But if they're depressed over a course of 2 years, then that's persistent depressive disorder. And the treatment is the same for both. A combination of medication that helps with the chemical changes in the brain and different types of talking therapy. So the treatment is the same for both.
This is just a question. Is any one of the talking therapies being able to just vocalize what's your thoughts, even when there's no one else around, so that you can actually hear your thoughts? And I think that sometimes that's a good release because you actually have, when it comes out and you hear it, actually hearing it back out, sometimes things don't make sense. Or this is all part of that pressure cooker. I mean, I had a friend who was depressed over being diagnosed with breast cancer, was extremely depressed and didn't know what to do. And I said, stand up at the top of your stairs and just scream as loud as you can. Okay. And it worked for her. It worked for her. So sometimes you just have to get that pressure out. Exactly. Talking, screaming. Don't go punching the wall, because you can.
It's a catharsis. Yes.
Yes.
Catharsis.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. And seek professional help. Don't listen to people who don't have experience dealing with that.
Right. Because a lot of people have the misconception that to see a psychiatrist, you have to be crazy. And as I said last year, most of the people I see are not crazy or psychotic. Most of the people I see are depressed and anxious. So you don't have to be crazy. And seeking help is a sign of strength. People see it as a sign of weakness, but seeking help is a sign of strength. Depression is preventable. You need to hear depression is preventable. You don't have to die. It's preventable.
Absolutely.
There is hope, and there's always hope. There's always hope, and there's always help.
Mm-hmm.
And self-medication takes away that thought process, because that's no longer in your thought process.
Exactly. Like when you self-medicate with alcohol, I mean, people think it's going to help, but what it does, I mean, you initially get that euphoria, but the overall net effect is depresses your whole central nervous system. While you get that initial euphoria, it makes you more depressed. So drinking only makes you more depressed.
But then too, you know, people resort to other type of drugs, marijuana, just all different types of drugs. And, you know, some of those drugs, you know, will cause you to go into a deeper, you know, depressive state, you know, but they just don't realize it at the time. They just, you know, initially want that pain to go away, but then not realizing, you know, as they're coming down, you know, you go up, but then, you know, once it comes back down, now you're sometimes even more depressed than you were prior to doing the you know, some of those different drugs out there. So seeking help is going to be the best thing.
About Twitch's death is unlined after he died, and several people came up with conspiracy theories saying, oh no, he was murdered. But I think that reflects difficulty in the society to accept that people can get that depressed and kill themselves. So rather than saying, you know, he killed himself, oh, he was murdered. You know, I've heard several people, you know, state that he was murdered. So. Right.
Yep. I was involved in a conversation like that, and basically I said a statement similar to what you said, and that sort of shut up the conversation. It did. You know, they were getting into this conspiracy stuff. How can you say something and you're not there?
Exactly. I think that reflects on the stigma in the society of having any kind of mental health issue or seeking treatment is still a stigma. It's very much a stigma in this society, especially more so among African Americans. You hear some Caucasians, oh, I got my therapist, my psychiatrist, but among us, you know, it's more of a stigma and something you don't want to really talk about or let people know, and keep it hush hush, you know.
Yeah, we had the actress, and this is the other, real quickly, just about 3 months ago, ran into a building and died in a car. And initially, well, she must have been overly medicated. You know, something else happened. She must have had a medical event. And they found out that none of that was true. What she did intentionally.
Well, and Haitian.
Yes, she did intentionally. And again, she's got everything. She's a star. She's got money.
Yeah, but that's the thing, you know, trying to, like I said, depend upon people's career and what it is that they do in life, the pressures of it that we don't see, you know, that they deal with quite often to maintain where they are, you know, it's a lot.
Wow. Again, that's when you base your self-worth on external things like age, like your beauty or your career. And when those things, you know, are gone, then your self-worth is gone. That's why it's important to try to build up an inner sense of self-esteem, not based on external things. That's really important. Your self-esteem not based on external things.
And they just posted the husband that drove the car off the cliff with the wife and child in the car a few weeks ago.
Yes. Wow.
They all survived, but, you know, he was arrested.
And remember South Carolina, how many years is that? Was about 20 some odd years ago, with the woman drove her car into the river with kids in the car, and then said, you know, that it was a black man that stole the car. It's, I mean, this whole suicide or attempting suicide is more with us than people care to believe, like to believe.
Exactly.
And the reasons are, there's no just one simple reason.
Exactly. So for all our listening audience, there is always hope and there's always
Susan
help.
Smith. Mhm.
Yes.
Yes. Any other parting words from Norm or Shavett before we end our show?
No, that's it. Just never give up. Never give up.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you, audience, for listening and joining us. And we look forward to you participating in 2 weeks for our next show. Don't know what the title will be yet, but in 2 weeks. Happy New Year to everyone.